Hey everybody, this is herculespetix, founder, curator, docent, and gift shop employee of the herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies. Today we're going to be looking at Dark Horse Presents number 1 through 3, the little comic book that started a whole empire, and that empire is named Dark Horse Comics. This was basically created in the back room of Dark Horse Comics kingpin Mike Richardson's comic book store. Right here in Portland. Well, it might have started in Milwaukee, which is right next to Portland. And it was during the black and white boom, so it actually sold enough. This was the first title. Well, this and another, Boris the Bear. First two titles. And this was the one, obviously, that had staying power. Nobody gives a shit about Boris the Bear. It was pretty bad. But it sold a lot because it was of its time. It was parroting the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and their ilk. And so it sold pretty well, and it got them off the ground. But this is the comic that basically was the backbone of Dark Horse Comics for the first, 10 years of its existence. And these comics I bought off the racks. And if you guys have watched my channel at all, you know that I love anthologies, even ones that aren't that good. I'm just a sucker for an anthology. And I bought this first issue off the racks, and I was just like, oh my God, this is the anthology I've been waiting for. Even though now I look back, it's not that great. But compared to the black and white boom titles at the time, a lot of them were just guys who couldn't even draw. It was pretty damn well done. A lot of professionals from Marvel worked for them because Dark Horse Comics would let you keep the copyright and let you do, for the most part, let you do whatever you wanted. You couldn't go that crazy because they're, kind of all ages comics. So let's crack these open. Here's number 1. God, this is, like I said earlier, these are not the best comics. They're not bad, though. But this is pretty much a nostalgia run for me. I can't get rid of these just because I have such fond feelings for just remembering how much I loved waiting for these every 2 months. We start off with a Chris Warner cover of his character Black Cross. Still think this looks fucking great. Chris Warner hasn't drawn anything in like 30 years because he's a kingpin, another kingpin at Dark Horse Comics. Maybe he's a Prince pin. He's been in editorial for all this time. But I think, back then, he was one of the best mainstream artists, working for Marvel and DC. Just a super sharp style. It almost looks like Terry Austin inked all of his comics, but he didn't. Chris Warner just drew that sharp and just had this really good style. And this still looks great to me. We have an introduction from editor Randy Stradley, who, of course, is another major bigwig at Dark Horse Comics today, still. And we start off with Chris Warner writing and drawing Black Cross. Now, when I was, this comic came out in 86, so I think I was 18, 19. I think I was just entering college. And I just thought this was the best comic, one of the best comics ever made. Because it's post-apocalyptic. I love this art still. And I was a sucker for that shit. Now reading it, it's pretty much just a testosterone-fueled tough guy comic. It's like if you like The Punisher, you'll probably like Black Cross. Everything this guy spouts is like a tough guy one-liner, like from a Clint Eastwood movie. He basically has 2 expressions: scowl and growl, and extra angry. He always wears these sunglasses. Just he's kind of a parody of himself. So in this post-apocalyptic world, it's very vague. It's it doesn't really tell you what's going on. Apparently, there's this thing called the BZ, which is like the Forbidden Zone. I guess there's no law there. Maybe there's radioactivity there. We don't know. But these patrols, they're basically like mercenaries. They wander the BZ. And they scan people. Whoever they find, they scan. And I'm not even sure what the scanner does. If it's seeing if they have a disease or something or radioactivity. But if it's positive, they kill them. So these guys are badasses. They're not good people. And unfortunately, Conrad is with them, our hero. And yeah, here he goes. First thing he says, "What do you know about hell?" Every line he says is like kind of one of those tough guy cliches. So Conrad has served in the war in Honduras. Apparently, in this future, Honduras is almost like Vietnam. It was some horrible conflict. He was a total badass there. And we see constant flashbacks to all the horrors of war that he saw in Honduras. It's almost like he has PTSD because he's constantly thinking of these horrific scenes. And so they're basically going through this BZ, killing rebels, I guess. I don't really know what's going on. I guess there's rebels, maybe. I don't know what they're rebelling against. So they come across this old man. He seems very harmless. It turns out he is. He's just out in the forest cooking. He's trying to survive. But the leader of the patrol, his name's Saragino. He's like, you know the rules. We got to check him out. So they go down there, and they go down to this his encampment and start kind of bullying him around. And he has no weapons. And so Black Cross is like, guys, end of the road here. Let's just move on. Like I said, this guy's harmless. But then he's like, we got to scan him. That's the rules. And they scan him, and it comes up positive. So they're going to kill him. And it seems like Black Cross's Honduras flashbacks are like increasing in the repetitions. And they're all basically scenes of him when he had to kill innocent people because someone ordered him to. And, he followed the orders. He was a soldier. But we see him, his scowl getting deeper and deeper, like Judge Dredd. And he's obviously getting angrier and angrier. And right when they're about to kill the old man, he just says, no. And he kills almost the whole patrol. And he says, not this time. He tells Saragino, the leader, he's the only one left alive. He says, drop your gun. Of course, Saragino's like, what the fuck's your problem? What the hell? This is some old piece of shit? What do you care about him? And he's like, whatever. I'm not following other people's rules. From now on, it's my rules. And he kills Saragino. As he walks away, the old man thanks him, tries to thank him. And then he says, what's your name so I can pray for you? He says, pray for yourself. And he says, who are you? And he says, Black Cross. So and basically he goes off the reservation, and now he's not going to be on these patrols, and he's just going to be wandering the BZ. So now we have the first appearance of Paul Chadwick's Concrete, who you've probably seen or heard of or read. And this is his very first appearance. Paul Chadwick was a Marvel artist at the time as well, and also worked for Hollywood. Did a lot of kind of big movies. Lettering by Bill Spicer. It said in the contributors' notes, Bill Spicer lettered a lot of those Gold Key comics. And there was always, Gold Key always had that funky title lettering. And I always thought that was Mike Royer. And I think he does do that really good, Mike Royer. But I guess a lot of it was Bill Spicer. I never made that connection. That's the total Gold Key lettering. That kind of cool, funky 70s lettering. So Concrete is yet another story. Almost all the stories in this, they just drop you in medias res, if you will. And so Concrete we'll find out his origin in his own comic like a year or two from now, which I used to read that, so I know it. But when you start this, it's just like, who's this guy Concrete? He's a big rock-looking guy. And basically the origin is there was some normal dude. He was abducted by aliens. They put his brain into this rock body, which is super strong. It's like 8 feet tall, super heavy. And then they took off. So this guy's just stuck in this rock form. And at this point, he's already kind of a minor celebrity. He obviously did some things. He was on talk shows because, it's amazing. And so this story, he's hanging out with his buddy Larry. Larry's also his personal assistant. because I guess he has enough money from his fame, he can have a personal assistant, whatever. And this episode is about them, at least starts out with them, looking at their fan mail, Concrete's fan mail. Now, see, this is why he needs a personal assistant. Concrete can't even open letters because he's got these big, clumsy rock fingers. His chair is a bunch of concrete blocks because there's no chair that can support his weight. And a lot of these letters are what you'd imagine to someone in his position. This kind of grifters making him deals like, hey, man, this will be good exposure. You should do this thing with me. There's kooks, total kooks, just like saying, oh, you're the avatar of Shiva. I just made that up. Just crazy stuff like that, There's like perverted people describing their fetishes for him, like what they want to do to him. Women sending photos of themselves naked. And one of the letters, though, he does is intrigued by this woman who seems to live near Beverly Hills, the postmark. She says, I'll offer you $10,000 just to mingle at my party. And, Concrete needs money. He can't really have a job. So he agrees to do it. Now we are introduced to Maureen. Maureen's a major character in Concrete. She's the scientist tasked by the government to basically, she lives with him pretty much. She's constantly monitoring him, taking levels from his rock skin, because, of course, the government wants to know what the hell's behind this technology, whatever. So he does some tests with Maureen, and then him and Larry head out to this party. I thought this was interesting. This is weird. Paul Chadwick has these two areas in between the panels where it's just like weird clip art and squiggles. Kind of interesting, kind of neat looking, but also just like, why'd you do that? I see no reason. So they head out. They get to the party. They're surprised that doesn't look like that swanky a part of town. Turns out it's not. It's just a kind of a middle-class area near Beverly Hills, and it's a children's birthday party. The mother says, she's kind of friendly, but she's also like, oh, frankly, I won't be able to pay you. Shameless, I admit. But just look how thrilled the kids are. Come on, be a mensch. And Concrete is a nice guy, and he does see that the kids are thrilled. And so he does agree to hang out for like an hour, does all these amazing feats of strength and all this fun stuff. The whole time, the mother's kind of admitting that she does this all the time. She's like, oh yeah, last year we almost got Sylvester Stallone to come. So she's tricked many a star into doing this. And, but overall, she doesn't seem bad, except for that. And so they say their goodbyes. And she says, oh, thank you so much. It was fun, wasn't it? And Concrete says, yep, it kind of was. I'll never forget it. And I imagine you won't either. And as he pulls away, we see that Concrete put her car on top of her garage. So I don't know how the fuck she's going to get down. Pretty mean prank. But then again, this woman, it's a pretty shitty thing to keep doing this to people. She needs to be taught a lesson. And Concrete does just that. I didn't even mention the art, but you could see the art yourself. Paul Chadwick has this very unique style. It's not like reinventing the wheel or anything, but it's like some things he draws really realistically. It seems like women he seems to draw better. And he's a good artist. He's got chops. I can't deny he's a good artist, but something about his art, like the compositions, something a little off. Like maybe this guy isn't from comics, he's more from movies. And so, I don't know, there's just something about the pages, the layouts. I don't respond that much to Paul Chadwick's art, even though I know sometimes it can be nice. He has some great panels here and there. Next, we have Mind Walk. This is scripted by Randy Stradley and drawn by Randy Emberlin, and both of them have co-created this strip. Randy Emberlin was another Marvel artist. He was an inker, though. In fact, I've never seen him pencil except for this strip. He inked a lot of Chris Warner stuff at Marvel. And this is very much like an 80s movie. It all could be filmed not that expensively, basically. It's about this psychic guy named Garrett. He's got some kind of mental powers. He can enter into people's brains. He's almost like Dreamscape with Randy Quaid or something like that, you know? And right when the story starts off, once again, right in the middle, we don't really know who this Garrett is. We do know from his inner narration that he's kind of a scoundrel, scallywag. Like he uses his powers just to like rip off casinos, for example, or whatever. And he does mention that the Spinelli mob has been, hassling him and trying to get their meat hooks into him. So he thinks these two goons show up, but they're kind of like different than your average gangsters. He can tell by the way they're dressed. And one of the guys has a giant metal hook for a hand. So they grab Garrett, they snag him, and it turns out they are not Spinelli's goons. Sorry, they aren't. They're feds. So they take him into this office. There's this CIA guy named Doyle, and they're basically like muscling him, and they're like, "We know about your shenanigans. Either you do this job for us, or you'll spend the rest of your life in jail." So he knows when he's been had. So of course he agrees. He really has no choice. They take him into this hospital room. There's a super old guy there, basically just being kept alive by machines. And they say, this guy, we've been trying to get information out of him for a long time. He's got these mental defenses set up. We can't get past him. And we need you to use your special powers to do it. See, Wendy Amberlin, too. This is the only pencil job I've ever seen him do. This is better than so many Marvel DC comics at their time. It's not great, obviously, but it's not bad. And there was many comics in 1986 from Marvel and DC. Guys probably getting paid way more than Randy Amberlin, who were much worse than this. Speaking of which, there's a great panel right here. As he enters the old man's mind, we see kind of a mind meld. I love this gray tone shading here. It's kind of interesting. So he enters the old man's mental mindscape, or whatever you want to call it, and he sees the wall. The guy's built a wall. The old man comes out. He attacks him feebly, but he's totally weak. And kind of weird how Garrett just punches the shit out of this dying old man. Even though it's in the mental landscape, it's not the same. So when he passes out, the wall gets really brittle, and there's a hole in it. He looks through, and he sees the secret that he's been keeping. This doctor, this scientist, Van Bolen, he didn't work for the Nazis. He was a scientist at the time. He had all this amazing, crazy scientific discoveries he made that the Nazis could have used. They killed his wife and kid to force him to do it. But of course, after that, he was just like, I'm not working for you. He spent the whole war in a jail cell. He never broke under the Nazis. When the war's over, some American CIA type, OSS at the time, basically says, you got to help us fight communism. You're coming to America. And he realized, they're not as bad as the Nazis, but they probably will use this knowledge for ill. And so all this time, he's never given up his secrets. Look at this panel here. That's like really good stuff. This is like super sharp. Nice stuff. And so basically Doyle told Garrett, he says, you better try. We'll know if you're faking, if you do some bullshit. So we see Garrett here just sweating, like he's really trying to get this old man to give up his secrets. And Doyle notices it and says, man, I didn't think he'd put this much effort into it. He really is trying. I got to give it to him. So when Garrett wakes up, he says, I'm sorry. I tried as hard as I could. I couldn't do it. And Doyle says, yeah, well, I guess you can go then. But remember, we're going to call on you anytime we need you. We got your number. And Garrett smiles as he leaves, because we look inside the old man's mindscape, and the old man says, thank you, young man. And basically, Garrett was exerting so much energy because he helped him build the wall even stronger. It's like twice the size. Now we have Brighter, once again, story and art by Paul Chadwick. When he worked at Marvel, Paul Chadwick drew Dazzler, And it's kind of weird. It's like a Dazzler story. He just changed the names. I assume he wrote this story, showed it to his editors, and they're like, nah, we don't like it. So he said, fuck it. I'll just take it and make it my own story. So Dazzler has the power to turn sound into light. And here we see her doing it. The character even says, it's a genetic anomaly, instead of saying I'm a mutant, to give it away. And she has this realization that, wait a second, I could make images, actual images. When I was younger, I kind of wanted to be a storyteller. I could make movies. I could use my powers, and just for the price of the celluloid, I could make movies that look like they have $1 trillion budget. The only limit would be my imagination. And it's kind of sad, though, because we see this panorama of what this limitless vista of imagination could look like, and Paul Chadwick is just not up for it. It's not that great. It's like imagine P. Quick Russell drawing this, or just some great artist with a visual imagination. Paul Chadwick, I think, is not that guy. It's a fucking Rambo shooting eggs and chickens out of a machine gun. It's a goofy idea, but not that great. And her head is just swimming with the idea that, and then these movies will make millions of dollars, and I could take the money and make the world a better place. Oh my God, why I never thought of this before? This is strange, because this actually almost looks like P. Craig Russell from that Killraven graphic novel, especially with the stars, the Alphonse Mucha stars. And this is the thing, though. There'll be a panel like this, where this is a gorgeous panel by Paul Chadwick. But overall, something about his art is just it just rubs me the wrong way. I don't hate it, but I don't love it. And the story basically ends with her saying, okay, I'm going to get started. And we never find out what happens, because I don't think this was ever continued. Here's an ad for that other comic Dark Horse published, Boris the Bear. And the letters page, since it's the first issue, is devoted to little bios of all of the contributors. And we have a back cover by Paul Chadwick of Concrete. Kind of interesting here, he's duplicating a clay painting. I don't know if that's a real painting or he's just whatever, but it looks kind of good. Next we have number 2, with a cover by Paul Chadwick. Under the Desert Stars. Once again, there's nothing wrong with this drawing, but it's, I don't know, composition, something just kind of sits there. Nice colors, though. Another intro by Stradley, and this time we start off with Concrete. There's some more of those gold key letters by Bill Spicer. And we see Maureen and Larry dropping concrete off in the desert. He's a writer, I guess. And he wants to totally clear his head, have no distractions, and just be out in the desert so he can write. And Paul Chadwick obviously loves drawing scenes of nature, drawing little critters, plant life. He does that all the time in Concrete. He even did an Earth Day comic once. Concrete imagines what this area looked like when it was underwater. Millions of years ago, it was an ocean in the southwest. He sees all these ichthyosaurs, whatever the hell these giant fish were called back then. And he begins to write. The sun goes down, and we realize that Concrete, one of the few advantages of having his crappy body, because I didn't mention this, but Concrete can't feel anything, can't really taste anything. He's got no genitalia, and but he is at least given this amazing eyesight where he could read and write with just the starlight. He can see. His pupils dilate. Here's another example. Look how well drawn this fox is. Paul Chadwick has totally got chops as an illustrator. That's an amazing drawing. So then Concrete's taking a break from writing, and he says, look, I like this little panel, these two panels, what we see and what Concrete sees. So that's how much brighter his vision is when he looks up at the stars. All of a sudden, he sees a car pull up in the middle of the desert. This guy opens up the trunk and takes a heavy bag out. And Concrete's like, oh my God, it's a body. What do I do? What do I do? So he starts heading that way. The guy takes off. He drops the bag off and takes off. He's imagining all the having to testify at court. And even though he's pretty much invulnerable, he doesn't have to worry about retaliation, he realizes that Maureen or Larry could be retaliated against. So he's like, oh man, I don't know what to do. I'm a little worried now. I forgot to mention that Maureen is a completely like scientific mind, kind of cold, and Concrete kind of has a crush on her. She's really gorgeous. She's beautiful, and but she has, even if Concrete wasn't a rock dude, if he was a handsome normal dude, she probably wouldn't give him the time of day anyway. She just has no time for that. It's all business with her. Here's an interesting panel. We see all the under the desert floor. We see all these critters in their burrows, and it's kind of a weird little choice. So Concrete's getting closer and closer to the bag, imagining all the crazy shit that went down, and he opens it up. It turns out it's just full of cookies and candy and all this bad stuff. This junk food. And Concrete's like, oh yeah, I guess the guy was pretty fat. Good for him. So this guy just, I guess cleaned his house out. He couldn't take the temptation. And the next day, Maureen and Larry pick him up. Remember this ad. We're going to see it later. This is very kind of pretentious ad for the next Black Cross story. God, the devil, life, death, mercy, judgment. A man at the crossroads. Black Cross. Fucking love that drawing, though. So now we have chapter 2 of Mind Walk and Crystal Vision. So we see this estate, kind of like almost like an armed fortress of an estate. It's like a castle. And we see a woman in the tower. It's a prison cell. And she's thinking to herself, he is coming. He is coming. Randy Stradley writing once again, and Randy Emberlin drawing. I didn't mention John Workman actually letters a lot of these. He was like one of the best letterers in comics, but he wanted to work at Dark Horse. Right? They just paid him more, I guess. So we start off right where we ended up. Those two agents, feds, drop Garrett off. They give him a ride home. Before he can get home, these two goons come out of the alley and start hassling him. It turns out they're Spinelli's men. Spinelli's the mobster that he has earned his wrath from, fucking around in casinos and shit. He kicks him and he makes a run for it. I kind of like this panel here where it totally goes overhead and we get to see the path they're taking, chasing after Garrett. So then he runs out the alley and he catches the two agents. I guess they went around the block. He says, guys, help me. So there's a shootout. The guy with the metal hook for a hand, his partner gets killed. Now we cut away to that mansion again, that almost fortress-like estate. And we see this evil woman, and we'll find out more about her. But this woman there is obviously the heavy. Back to the gunfight. The guy with the metal hand takes out the two goons. Realizes he's a pretty cold motherfucker because he's just like, I've had better agents die on me. We have a little interlude here, a little house ad for Dark Horse's characters, and the story continues. Sorry, guys. I got sick again. I don't know what the hell's going on. But I really want to finish this video. So, Garrett touches the hand of one of the goons, and he talks to him. And he realizes that Crystal is being held by Spinelli. Now, we don't really know who Crystal is. We heard him mention it last issue. And obviously, though, it's someone he loves. I don't know if it's a sister or whatever, girlfriend. He's been looking for her. And the guy basically says, you try any more tricks on me, I'll take it out on the girls, Garrett. He says, you don't get it, do you? You're dead. He says, just as he was dying, Garrett entered his mind. back at the estate. Oh, I'm sorry, I should mention Garrett steals the Fed's car and races off to rescue Crystal. And that's how the story, the cliffhanger ends. Now we have Cortege. This is written by J.M. DeMatteis and drawn by Mark Badger. This features their Hellwalk characters, who I'm pretty sure no one's ever seen again. And I don't know if you guys remember Mark Badger. He was one of the weirdest artists at Marvel. During the Shooter era, Shooter really liked that clean house style. But Mark Badger had some pretty high-profile comics with a completely unique style. I actually really liked his style. It was very interesting. So Hellwalk is comprised of this married couple, Luke and Lizzie. The story begins with them making love. We see two eyes under the bed. They're waking up. This cute little dog comes out and then turns into this demon. So I guess this is the third major character of Hellwalk. This paranormal investigative couple have this demon. We don't know where they got him, where they found him. Once again, I guess if it was continuing, we'd find out. But we'll never find out. So their butler comes in. J. Mark DeMatteis does, that like kind of snarky, witty repartee. It's pretty cute. There's some, it's pretty okay. And they get a letter from this solicitor. And she's like, I'm representing a man, dire need of your services. Please, help. $10,000. They go to this person's place, or I should say her client's place, and there's this incredibly old man in bed. He's just decrepit. And he proceeds to tell them he's a vampire. And he's sick. And he's kind of dying, but he can't die. But whatever it is, it's not good. And so this is one of those Mully and Sculder things where the wife, Lizzie, she doesn't believe he's a vampire. And it's just like, you have a fucking demon who lives with you. A shape-shifting demon. You can't believe in a vampire? But the husband kind of does. And he says, okay, if you are a vampire, he tells, the old guy, he says, vampires don't just die of natural disease. What? I don't understand what's happening. And it turns out this guy got AIDS. And he just tells them, he's lived for centuries, lived through the Black Plague just fine. But AIDS is the thing that brought him down. And it's this horrible half-death, half-life thing where he's basically always almost being killed by the AIDS, but he can't quite die. So whatever, it's agony. And he wants them to end it. And basically that's the job offer. The solicitor, she has a stake and a hammer. And she says, yes, we want you to end his life. I can't do it. She obviously has this fondness for the old vampire. She loves him too much that she can't do it herself. Of course, both Luke and Lizzie are just like, no, we're not murderers. We're not doing that. And he's like, please, please. And he's like, why don't you just leave the curtain open? And, when the sun comes up, it'll take care of it. He's like, no, I've seen what happens to other vampires. It burns and it's so slow. Please just make it nice and quick. And they're like, no, we don't do that. And they leave. And they say, we won't be cashing that check. No dice. And so after they leave, the vampire pleads with the solicitor once again, please kill me, please. She's like, I can't, I have to go. And after she leaves, the vampire says, Sharon, did you close the curtains? And she obviously hasn't. Now we cut away to the other side of the city. Luke is looking out the window. And, obviously both of them are very affected by this and just talking about mortality and stuff. And real horror, like real horror isn't a mummy chasing you. It's something like AIDS where, it's killing thousands of people. You don't even know if it's a crapshoot if you get it or not. So they're both, feeling pensive, and then we see as the sun rises, Luke is looking out the window, and he sees this vision rising up over the city here. And there's the vampire. That's what he looked like when he was young. There was a portrait over his bed. And it almost looks like he's being ushered off to Vampire Valhalla. So obviously he's moved on, shuffled off this mortal coil, or immortal coil. And I don't know why, this kind of reminds me of Charles Vess. Like, this is still very, that kind of style. Liz doesn't see it. So Luke is just like, oh shit. And so Luke just has a smile on his face. I guess he realizes the vampire finally got his wish, even though it probably hurt like hell. And he goes to bed. Oh, and I'm sorry. We see the vampire's bed, and he is now just ashes or just gone. So, not a bad story. I wouldn't mind seeing more of that hell walk. In the first letter page here, we get a long letter from Harlan Ellison telling us that Concrete's like one of the best comics ever made. He's a little too enthusiastic, I think. Concrete's pretty... I remember at the time thinking Concrete was so good, because there weren't many comics like that were like written for adults. I don't know, just not a bunch of guys hitting each other on the head, punching each other. There's a lot of comics during that time that were like, oh, wow, this is raising the bar. And then now you read them and you're like, it's not that good. And then we have the back cover of Mind Walk, penciled by Randy Emberlin, and the painted colors by this guy, Don Wallace, who I've never heard of him again. He's probably from the film industry. Now we have number 3, featuring Randy Emberlin cover doing Mind Walk. Looks very much like it could be, I don't know, a Marvel cover. This time Mike Richardson does the introduction. And this time we start off with Mind Walk. Once again, Stradley writing, Emberlin penciling, and contributing to the story as well. So now we're at that Spinelli's estate. Here's Spinelli. And here's this woman. I think her name's like Rosamio or something. The evil, she's a psychic. The woman locked in the tower, Crystal, she's a clairvoyant. And they figure with their 2 brains fusing mental power, they could take over the world. A car approaches. It's not stopping. Smashes through the gate. Almost kills Spinelli. They realize that there's just some boards propped up to the wheel and the gas pedal. And it was all just a diversion so Garrett could sneak in the back way. And he walks up the tower steps, clonks the guard in the head, and he rescues Crystal from her prison. As they're about to get out of there, all of a sudden, they're sucked into this other mindscape. And it's almost like going into another dimension. And they're buffeted by these hurricane-level winds. And it's just crazy weather. And it's just insane. And then it gets even worse. Because this Jack Kirby drawn character comes out of nowhere and starts attacking him. Garrett uses his psychic mind force to attack it, but no dice. This is interesting. In this whole sequence, in this mindscape, Randy Emberlin almost draws more like Jack Kirby. Look at this Garrett here. The way his position. That's so Jack Kirby. I mean, obviously this creature is too. So Garrett turns in, using his mental powers, he turns into another Kirby-like creation. And they have this total Marvel Comics fight. This could be like Ron Wilson pencils here. It just looks right out of a Marvel comic. But I guess Garrett's not strong enough. He gets pummeled down. And then all of a sudden we hear this evil, villainous laugh. And it's that woman, Rosamia. And she says, "Is that the best you can do, little brother?" So, dun, dun, dun. And this is continued next issue, but we're not going to look at it this video, unfortunately. So next video, which, not the next video, but in 5 videos or so, we'll look at number 4, the concluding chapter. So now we have Concrete, once again by Paul Chadwick, in the 4-wheeled sleeping pill. Maureen and Concrete are going for a nightly constitutional, just walking around. Look how beautifully he draws Maureen. I mean, he always draws women pretty well, but I could see why Concrete is in love with her. She's just gorgeous. This is another example where he's trying to say all these romantic things like, oh, look at the clouds. The sky is as blue as your eyes. And she's totally just like, maybe if we schmata the Framistat and blah, 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 blah with your skin, with your rock skin. Yeah, she doesn't care at all. She's just totally lost in her scientific mind. So they're in this roundabout, and all of a sudden, this car comes out of nowhere. Concrete pushes Maureen to safety and takes the brunt of the blow. And, he's pretty indestructible, Concrete. Well, obviously not, but he could take a lot of punishment, but he is down for the count. So Maureen's like, oh shit, what am I going to do? So basically Concrete is like kind of owned by the government. Like, I mean, he's allowed his freedom, but, Maureen works for the science branch of the government, and they can't have him revealed to the world. Even though everyone knows about Concrete, they don't really know what he is. They have no idea. He's just a big question mark, and they don't want people to be able to check him out closely. So she's like, oh my God, I gotta do something. She hides him in the brush. She kind of rolls him off the road. And then she goes back to their place where Concrete lives. It's very close. She runs there. And Larry's gone, and he took the truck. So she's like, ah, shit, what am I going to do? So she goes back. Oh, I'm sorry. She's got the truck, but it's not an automatic. So she doesn't know how to drive it. So she grinds the gears getting back. There's his kids there. She's got to shoo him off. Maureen's pretty no-nonsense. And then when she finally goes back to see what's going on with Concrete, this little kid's there with a camera. He's like, I'm a photojournalist. And she's like, listen, I'll give you $20 for the film. He's like, $500. And she's like, you little shit. She gives him $20 and just grabs his camera and takes the film out. He starts crying and runs off. He says, I'll be back with more film. And these cops show up. And I say, hey, have you seen anything strange on the hill tonight, madam or miss? And she's like, no. She's lying, And then the cops take off. So when she goes back to where Concrete was, he's gone. Turns out Concrete is crawling around. He woke up a little, even though he's still really hurt. She somehow gets him back to the truck, climbs inside. They make it home. And on TV is that little kid, the photojournalist. Apparently, those cops were looking for a dead, a crime victim. And the kid found him, this dead body, and took all the pictures. And Maureen is totally freaking out, thinking, oh my God, please don't mention Concrete. Please don't mention Concrete. And the kid doesn't. So the last panel is just her just going, whoo. But once again, Paul Chadwick, really good at faces. You can totally see that worry in her face. It's pretty good. So now we have another Black Cross tale by Chris Warner. So Black Cross has decided to just, he's gone AWOL. He's just living in the BZ. So he's got to deal with all these scavengers and mean guys running around. So this cowboy dude comes out of the woods, points a gun in his head, says, I always wanted one of those guns like yours. I think I'm going to have to kill you, buddy. What do you have to say about that? And Black Cross says, what size boots do you wear? And of course, you know where that's headed. The next scene, with some teaser panels, we see Black Cross is now wearing the cowboy's duster and his boots. So he obviously killed the guy. Then someone else comes around the bend, and it's this woman, Rita. It kind of looks like Bonnie Raitt mixed with Bonnie Tyler. I don't know if he was trying for that. So it turns out she's a musician. She's this young woman. She's hasn't been beaten down by the BZ because she's new to the BZ. She actually lived in the governed area, the place that isn't total anarchy. She had a band, and I guess right before everything went to shit, they were about to get signed. So they don't tell us really what happens. We still don't know why this world is apocalyptic or what happened, but they mention an incident, So pretty quickly they befriend each other. And for the first time, we see Black Cross not scowling at someone or looking all tough guy-ish. Seems like he's taken with this young girl by her joie de vivre. He even takes off his sunglasses. So that night they're around the campfire. She's playing her guitar. She tells him about her life. He even opens up to her a little about, Honduras. And the next day they're riding around. And sorry, I get distracted by how sharp his art is. This is great tree. Like, everything is just, I think as far as like typical mainstream artists, I fucking love his art. He was going to take over Batman. I think he drew 2 issues. And then I think he realized that Dark Horse is better. I'd rather get to keep my copyrights and whatever. And get some kind of editorial position. So this kind of posse shows up. Desperados. And they say, hey, one of our buddies went missing. We found him dead. It looks like somebody robbed him. You wouldn't know anything about that, would you? And he says, not a thing. And they actually say, okay, well, steer clear of any suspicious characters. They turn around. But Black Cross knows. He's like, they know. While they kept us busy, they circled a rifleman behind us to cut us off. They're going to kill us. And we see the sniper in the tree. Black Cross turns around, shoots him, and then the guys ride back to attack. And I forgot to mention this, guys, but Rita mentioned that her best friend in the whole world was her horse Rebel. And as soon as they attack, they shoot Rebel right through the neck. And Black Cross is furious. He's like, you sons of bitches. And he just attacks these guys like a maniac. Two guns ablazing. We see some great action shit here. Just massacre. And pretty much all the guys are either dead or have run off. And Rita is left completely devastated by the death of Rebel. And the leader of this group, he's the one left alive. And Rita's like, give me a gun. Back off, Conrad. He's mine. I'm going to blow his fucking head off. And Black Cross says, it's not worth it, Rita. It won't change anything. And he basically talks her down. He say, it'll take a piece out of you that you'll never be able to put back. I've been down that road too many times. And she gives him, Conrad, the gun. Black Cross. Black Cross turns instantly around and shoots the guy in the head and kills him. And she's like, you bastard, you killed him anyway. And he says, basically says, that's what I do. Is like, I talked you out of it because you still have a soul. I'm a lifeless husk. I can't go back. I've killed so many. One more is no biggie, but you, it would have been a big thing. And like I said, it would have taken a piece out of you that you could never put back. So she gets it. She's like, thank you. And then she rides off. And she says, I'll miss you, Conrad. He says, don't. In his cool macho voice. But then as she rides farther off, he says, miss you too. So she actually got to Conrad. For once, he shows some emotion. Now we have the Boris Chronicles featuring Boris the Bear. And this is not very good. I don't like this. This is illustrated by James Dean Smith and script by Randy Stradley. And so this is like unlike Boris's comic, where it was just parodies of popular comic trends. These are cute little adventures of Boris living with this guy David, and they're kind of obnoxious. I do gotta say though, I love the way he draws this cat. It reminds me of some manga, even though I don't know the name of it. Really great character design on this cat. This cat's name is Rufus, I think. And this comic is almost like an old Tom and Jerry cartoon. It's just them, Boris and Rufus, and their feud. Sometimes Rufus gets the other hand, sometimes Boris does. And, just slapstick humor. And at the end, Rufus rips off Boris's teddy bear nose, and David's got to sew it back on. Yeah, you don't ever need to read this. I read them so you don't have to. We have the letter page, and I kind of like this. Remember I told you to remember that ad for Black Cross? So Jim Braddock had a character named Wacky Squirrel in the backup of Boris the Bear. And so he made this little parody of that ad. Pathos, decorum, angst, mortality, theology, caffeine, never had, never will. A squirrel at the crossroads, whack cross. It says coming soon, but it never did. This is just a joke. I gotta say though, Jim Braddock, this is great funny animal cartooning to me. This looks terrific. I kind of want to read Wacky Squirrel, even though I have a feeling the writing won't be that good. But really nice. And now we have that ad, colorized, without the pompous words. Love that picture. Really nice. And this is colors by Don Wallace again, that guy. Kind of interesting color scheme there. So there you go, guys. Dark Horse Presents number 1 through 3. Next time we're going to look at 4 through 6. And then after that, we're not going to barely look at any until number 100 when Bob Schreck takes over. So, next time it's going to be about this level of mediocrity. But after that, I promise, it gets way better, especially when Bob Schreck takes over. And there's a lot of good stuff in like number 100 on for quite a while. So I have a lot of those, and that's basically what we're going to look at. But like I said, I can't get rid of these, and I wanted to show them off. And I mean, some nice art, these. Kind of, nice mainstream art. So, whatever. It's better than a kick in the head. Hope you guys enjoyed looking at these, and I hope to see you next time here at the Herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies.